Okay. Here we go. Hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And thank you to the organizers for inviting us. My name is Grace Leo. I'm an associate director of instructional design here at Stanford University. I work for the Office of the Vice Provost for Teaching and Learning. And I'm accompanied here by my colleague, Ken Ligda, who is going to talk next. He's also an associate director for instructional design. We're also fortunate to have with us Giulio Gratta and Craig Sapp. They wrote some of the software that we're going to spotlight in the presentation today. So we're going to talk about a couple of courses that the Vice Provost for Teaching and Learning has put out through its online portal, Stanford Online. The first course is Defining the String Quartet, Haydn. This is a self-paced MOOC that just came out about a month ago. And it features, it's a collaboration between Professor of Music Stephen Hinton and the ensemble in residence, the St. Lawrence String Quartet. So this course features conversations between Stephen and the quartet. Stephen talks about the genre of the string quartet and how it was developed by Haydn. He might talk about a certain form or gesture. The quartet would play it. It was beautifully shot by our team back here, actually. They did a great job in our beautiful new Bing concert hall. And this course featured a challenge which many MOOCs present to instructional designers, which is how do you present to a very broad audience using this medium? So Stephen wanted to really be able to dig into the meat of the matter. He wanted to be able to get into the analysis, to talk deeply about the history, but he also didn't want to alienate learners who didn't know how to read music, who had no experience whatsoever with music. So we had a number of different ideas for how to tackle this challenge, which I'm going to present to you. The first one was to use layered content. So some of the content in the course is quite advanced. Some of it is fairly basic. And so there's a little bit of something there for everybody. There are also two types of statement of accomplishment that students can earn. There's a basic statement of accomplishment, and there's an advanced statement of accomplishment. Corresponding to these two statements, there are two different types of problems that we marked with a single eighth note and a double eighth note. So if you do only the single eighth note problems, you can earn a basic statement. And if you do the double eighth note problems, you can earn the advanced one. We wanted to make sure, though, even still, that students who didn't know how to read music could access as much of the course as possible. And so we actually have a lot of messaging in the course encouraging them to try the double eighth note problems, even if they don't read music, because a lot of them actually are accessible. And we also have some other software solutions for this. So solution number 2 is dynamic scores or interactive scores. So you know, you've all seen, you're all familiar with the OpenEdX platform, and you know how it has the scrolling captions on the side that highlight what's being said. Well, Craig here designed a platform that does the same thing, but for music. So you've got the music playing, and there's a scrolling score, and it highlights the notes that are being played. So I'm going to show you a little clip. Let's see. Uh-oh. Oh, there we go. So you can see there that as a note is played, it gets highlighted in red. Much like on the OpenEdX platform, you can also click on a specific note and have it jump there. So let me show you how that works. You'll see the mouse click in a minute. Here we go. Click. Now, there have already been some comments in the discussion forum about this tool. People are saying, hey, this is pretty nifty, and I don't know how to read music, but I actually feel like I get a sense now of what those dots and lines mean based on watching this score as I listen to the music. And now, since we have some developers in the audience, I thought it'd be nice to have Craig come up on stage and tell you a little bit about how he did this. So Craig is a consulting assistant professor in the Center for Computer Assisted Research in the Humanities.
Yeah, so I'll just give a very brief overview, and if people want to have more detail afterwards, they can come ask me questions. So here's kind of the basic overview of how it works. So I work with HTML5 audio and video interface with a little loop that runs whenever you start playing the video, and then it keeps track of kind of a table between the score time and the physical time in the performance. And then depending on what time, if it's a time for something to happen, like turning on or note off in the notation, it'll go to the SVG and put in little class tags to turn things on or remove them, to turn them off. So the core of the system is the alignment between the audio and the notations. So I do analysis on performance analysis of piano pieces. And so I've written some audio markup tools for a program called Sonic Visualizer, which is an annotation tool for audio. There's also been, I've seen a few online video or kind of web interfaces to do similar things, but this is more for scientific research, so I can get very accurately alignment. And so what I do is I basically have the orange thing is the audio waveform. The purple vertical lines are where I'm putting my marks, and then I label like which measure and which beat. And then this black kind of little curve underneath is a marker for where note onsets are occurring, so I can kind of see where these things are occurring visually. So it's not very obvious in the orange waveform. And then I have like a form of spectrogram underneath that also help me decide on the alignment. So it's kind of a semi-automated process. So there are ways of doing it fully automated, but you'll get errors. And for visual and audio alignment, you don't need to be too accurate. But in general, I work on more highly accurate alignment for like performance analysis. So this is the kind of the map between time in the score, which are the pinkish color, to time in the recording in red. And so this is kind of an example of how the score is marked up. So what I do is in the score, I just do the number of quarter notes since the beginning of the piece. So it's just a continuous sequence of numbers. It just counts how many quarter notes since the beginning of the piece. So every note in the score gets labeled with a timestamp in terms of quarter notes. So I don't put real time in there. That's kept in the table of the time map. So let me see, yeah. So then in the score, I prepare it. It's an SVG image, and for every graphical object that I need to highlight, I wrap it in a G element, which has, in this case, note on -95 and note on 96. That means turn on the note at quarter note 96 and turn it off at turn it on at 95 and turn it off at 96. So then what happens? So all I have to do when I'm performing is I put a little on tag, and I have a CSS style for the SVG, which just turns it red if it has the on class. And then when it's time to turn off, I just remove the on tag, and it goes back to black. So I'm kind of working on generalizing the software that's used in the class. So at the moment, it only works on HTML5 elements of audio and video. But eventually, I want to also do it for YouTube, which is a more complicated process because I can't access the time as fast as I can with the audio element. And so I'm working eventually to have a not so great working version of the software up online already. So if you're interested, I can give you updates, or you can help me with it in the future. And so that's my part of the presentation.
Thank you, Craig.
Okay.
And if you have questions for Craig, there will be some time for Q&A at the end of this. So there's one more solution that we stumbled upon for the Haydn course, really something that people use all the time, learning by doing. So we still wanted students to have more opportunities to learn about reading music without adding more videos and lectures and readings. So we just created a series of problems, very simple problems, where the student is asked, they're given a score and they're asked to click on the highest pitch, for example. They're not instructed what these pitch things are or notes are, what are these dots and lines, but they are given an audio clip. Which corresponds to the notes that they see. And if they need extra help, there's a hint button, which tells them that the ovals correspond to pitches. Further, we have a piano gadget, which we've included in the course. Now, this is a piano that students can play. When they click on a note, they will hear a pitch, and they will also see the corresponding note on the staff. So I'll show you what that looks like as well. So this kind of lets the student experiment and figure out for themselves what these notes mean. Now we have Giulio here to tell us a little bit about how he wrote the code for this piano.
So this is actually incredibly simple. It seems really complicated, but it really isn't. It was built as part of a hackathon that we were doing for just because when JS Input first came out on edX, which is actually quite a long time ago now. It's I think 1.5 years now. And so we were just trying to play with what JS Input could do. And so I did this and another even simpler one. But this is really all it is just joining 3 different JavaScript libraries. Raphael is just a SVG, as it says there, canvas drawing. Vexflow is to draw the little staff with the note, depending on what input you give it. And the QWERTY Hancock is an incredibly well-named the piano is actually that one. And that just uses the JavaScript audio library to generate audio waves. So in this case, I think I'm using a sawtooth wave for those things. Yeah, and that's where the code is available there, including a bunch of other stuff from us for JS inputs.
Great, so that's it for Haydn. Now we have another course that had strange notation that students needed to learn how to translate into something they could understand. And we have Kenny to talk to us about digging deeper. Thank you.
Okay, so digging deeper is a sequence of courses on medieval manuscripts. It was created by Professor Elaine Traharn at Stanford, collaborating with librarians at Cambridge University Library and Stanford University Library, also faculty at Cambridge. And the motivation for this course is that a lot of manuscript material is out there in some form. Much of it is being digitized. People can see medieval manuscripts, but they have no way to dig deeper, as it were, to find out what the heck this stuff actually means. And the professor is very invested in opening access. I mean, manuscripts are our best window into the medieval world, this 1,000-year period of history. There's a lot that you can get, but you need to be able to get into the manuscripts a little bit. So how do you do that? The main challenge is to teach close analysis of medieval handwriting, and that is not a trivial challenge in an online environment or anywhere. This medieval handwriting is actually not bad. This is actually English. This is Latin, but this is English. But it's really hard to read. And in order for learners to actually make substantial progress in this, they have to get into this in some way. So what to do? The first solution is the sort of easy or basic solution, which is to give people a deep background on medieval culture. And we did this basically with videos and multiple choice assessments. So basically, Elaine would talk about where manuscripts are produced, why they were produced, how a scholar begins to look at them, the materials used. So there'd be a video and then some multiple choice to show that you had paid attention to the video. And you can get a certain distance with that. So you know, here's a manuscript. I know nothing about it. But I know what paper looks like, papyrus looks like, and what parchment looks like. And I know that these are associated with particular periods, with specific levels of affluence, with specific historical events. Okay, so I can get a little bit further into these texts. But the difficult problem remains that you have to tackle paleography, the study of handwriting. And again, this is a serious hurdle. Traditionally, you'll get a book like this, Introduction to Manuscript Studies, and you'll sit with a world expert in special collections for about 5 years, going through manuscripts and transcribing them with paper and pencil. So that's a little hard to replicate in a MOOC. So what we did was Elaine made a video in which she basically had a text from special collections, a pencil, and she showed this is how medievalists actually learn to do what they do. They sit down, they look at a manuscript, and they transcribe it by a set of rules that medievalists have come up with. And Elaine said, we have to make this work online. And I'm going to confess, I think this is the best thing that came out of this course in a lot of ways. My response as an instructional designer was, that's a terrible idea. Like we shouldn't touch this. Because, first of all, we don't have really a good way to assess this. We didn't come up with a way that would check that you were doing this in any way correctly. Also, I said this all very politely, obviously, but I said, why would anyone want to do that anymore? This is from an age when people had to, you'd go to the library at York, and the only way that other medievalists are going to know what you saw is you transcribed it correctly with your pencil. But you can take a picture with your iPhone now. You don't need to do this anymore. And Elaine said, if you don't learn this, you'll never learn what you're looking at all. So it's like, okay, well, we better do it. So the first version of this was we have a page of a manuscript for people to look at, and we have a text box, and we give them certain rules for transcribing what they see. So it was very imperfect in that many medieval manuscripts contain letters that no longer exist and punctuation that no longer exists. Also, there are things that you can do on paper more easily, like underline, that we didn't have a good option with here. So we had good responses from people. This is what it looks like when somebody actually puts something in. And this is the attempt to replicate it. We could give a special character bank here for people to copy and paste. But still, we felt like this was a pretty imperfect way of tackling the problem. And we wanted to bring people a lot closer to what the manuscripts were actually saying. And we could only do that with the help of Julia again.
And I guess, okay, so this one is, I found online that there's actually a initiative by medievalists, something called MUFI, or M-U-F-I, Medieval Unicode Font Initiative. So there's this bank of Unicode characters that are sort of left open for people to play with and do other things with that don't have anything specific to be used for. And so there are special fonts, including one that I ended up using for this, which I guess is not on the screen, but you'll see it in the next slide, that actually use those Unicode characters and map them to specific medieval characters. And so all I ended up doing was basically building a little mini text editor, kind of using the same functions as Google Docs uses, just JavaScript functions that detect like keystrokes for like bolding and underlining and things like that, and also just insert characters and change sort of the color and size of characters. Yeah, so this is what I think was actually built as a on the XBlock hackathon. So yeah, let me know if anybody wants more information on how these work.
Go hackathons. Some pretty good stuff comes out of this. Okay, so what we got to implement in the second course was a new transcription tool. And so you see, again, we have a page of a medieval manuscript, and down here is where you can input stuff. And magically, this is me from the humanities, magically, you now have all these characters that you didn't have before and you've maybe never seen represented on a computer screen. This is terrific. Now you can put any of them in. So you have like all these weirdo bits of punctuation. You have that, which is the TH sound. And also to represent, it's called Lydia or Notabilis, like a big letter. You can make the letter big, and you can make it colored. The colors are significant too. So we thought that this was a huge win. We had a really good reaction from the community around the course about this. And we also just had a lot of success with the paleography exercises, even though they were really difficult. So here, orange and yellow are course 1, and green and blue, or green and brown are course 2. There's the usual sort of big drop-off, but the overall attrition was pretty good. Completion rates were around 25% for both courses. And what was really significant to me was that, so orange here, so this is unit completion. Orange is the bread and butter part of the course. It's the staple part of the course. It's like the videos with the main materials and the multiple choice quizzes, which were pretty easy. And yellow is the paleography exercises. So in course 1, you can see that after the first week, more people are doing the paleography exercises than are actually just watching the videos and doing the multiple choice, than are interacting with the core content. So the much harder part of this is what people were more drawn to. And similarly in course 2, this is where we implemented the new paleography tool. The paleography tool became more popular than the core content of the course. So this was clearly where people felt like they were really getting traction into the material. And so next steps with this, we sort of squished courses 1 and 2 into a Franken course. It was 6 weeks and 5 weeks. We're on the quarter system for our sins. And so now we have a 10-week course that has the same, all the material. And we've implemented the new paleography tool throughout. We've run it on campus and gotten good feedback on that. So we want to run this publicly and add another course that will really, where paleography will be the key aspect of it, which will be Digging Deeper 3. So I think we've left some time for Q&A. Thank you.
Yes.
I have a question to the second presenter. You mentioned the completion rate is 25%. Mm-hmm. Is this the completion rate for students actually student credit or just in general student?
So 25% who enrolled earned statements of accomplishment.
So they are Stanford students in this case?
No, I'm sorry. That's I should have said that at the beginning. This is a public online course. This is a MOOC. We've run it subsequently on campus, but with a smaller group of students. Yeah.
How much of the custom development you had to do with its logs to get the functionality that you were showing? It's something you reused and you developed from scratch?
Is this for Julia?
Yeah, so the piano, that was a one-day hackathon. That took a couple hours, honestly. The medieval text one, that was a couple days now. A couple days of hardcore development, it took me about a week to get that going. all it really is just enabling a new font and just a little text editor. But that was also, again, we were learning what X blocks were. Yeah.
I have a question about the assessment strategy for the Haydn course. I'm curious if you used just tools on the platform, if you went off the platform at all, or what?
So the question is, what was the assessment strategy for the Haydn course, and whether we used tools off the platform? So we mostly stuck with what was in the platform. We actually used a fair amount of click the image. So for example, there were questions like, click where the viola picks up the theme, or click the second occurrence of the theme in this score. That's an example of something that might have been in the course. Or another one is, here's the score, listen to the music. How many times do you hear the theme get picked up again? It gets played several times, and how many times is it? So these are all totally doable within the platform. The only thing that was brought in from outside of the platform was actually the interactive score tool that was iframed in. That was not actually built into the platform. But yeah, that wasn't really assessment. That one is just an activity.
So there was no assessment attached to that.
That's right. That one has no assessment attached to it. I mean, it was used in some of the assessments as like, listen to the music and watch the score and then answer this question about it. But the question would be within the platform. Yeah. Yes?
Now that you have the Haydn course and the tools that you use, how expensive in time and effort would it be to do one on concertos or something?
That's a good question. Well, so I don't know if this is a secret or not, but Stephen actually wants to do one on Beethoven, defining the string quartet, Beethoven. I mean, the production is always going to be a cost. It's very important that the music, the audio quality be very high, and the production values be good for this kind of a course. But for example, the music tutorial, we could just take the one from Haydn and plop it into Beethoven without too many changes. So there are a lot of things that could be kept. But I think the bulk of the cost would be the production.
And what makes you think that the audio quality is that important for listening for the theme, listening for the harmony, the counterpoint, whatever?
So it's not important for just the analysis, the listening for the theme, etc. But one of Stephen's major goals in this course is just music appreciation. Just really being able to feel and hear the music and enjoy it. And having high quality audio makes that experience a lot better, So, yes?
Well, maybe same question with a little bit different perspective. In theory, at least, a key aspect of any course is ILO, its learning objectives. Right?
Yes.
So what were ILOs for these two courses, for the music one and for the digging deeper?
What were the learning objectives
Yeah,
for the two courses?
and how did the tools you created help the learners to reach those objectives?
Right. So there are a lot of learning objectives around music history. The course covers both music history and theoretical analysis. So, for the student to understand the background around Haydn, the context that he was writing in, how his music shaped the music that followed. So one of his major points is that the Haydn string quartets really developed the genre kind of more than anyone else. He was one of the early writers of the string quartet. And in order for the students to be able to get to the analysis types of learning objectives, of course, they would need some amount of score reading ability, which is why we put in all of those extra tools. For the Digging Deeper course, what would you say were
The key, there's sort of, as with many courses, there's a explicit and implicit, or intellectual and emotional, really. The explicit is you will confront a manuscript in your life, willingly or unwillingly. You'll be in a museum, whatever. You will be able to ask intelligent questions of it. You'll be able to recognize stuff about it. It's made of this material. It has this layout. It has these characters in it. So being able to intelligently interpret this information medium. The implicit goal was for people to care about this stuff. Unlike many works of art, apparently manuscripts are not UNESCO protected. And we had a video in which Elaine shows a book that she'd purchased, and when she got it, she found that it was almost empty. There's just a few leaves left because it's been broken. There's been a biblioclast has like cut it out and sold them all. And the point is like to have people care, and the idea underlying it is basically people care more about stuff that they can understand. So that was like the deep motivation for the course.
I think that's a good point, and that's certainly true for Haydn as well, that one of the implicit goals is for people to care about Haydn, for them to care about the string quartet and classical music, and that's another reason why the audio quality has to be really good. Yes?
Two questions. One is that what are the incentives that you provide for instruction to the course and book class? Number two is that how many students attend to learn the content in those two classes?
So the incentives that we provide to the instructors, we're very fortunate at Stanford to have a lot of instructors who are excited to do this kind of work without a lot of explicit incentives. So Stephen, I don't think he was given any kind of teaching relief or salary for this. He just really wanted to share this with the world. He had a course that he taught on campus with the St. Lawrence Quartet, and it was really popular. The students loved it, and they talked about creating a MOOC. They were both really excited about doing this. So I think it was really just a love of the subject and a desire to share something that he was passionate about with the world.
It's about finding those special people where you say, like, this is going to be a hell of a lot of work and you're not going to get paid extra. And they're like, oh, that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
So, people with a mission a lot of times. For the numbers, we're around 1,000 to 1,500 of people that were dedicated enough to really get through it or get close to getting through it. We think, we've only run these once. I think we can get those numbers up. But manuscripts, the people that care about this, there's a core audience, of people that really, really care. And I think there's a lot of people that are kind of casually interested that I'd like us to do more to capture. Oh, it strikes me that we do medieval music in the course, and there should be some kind of like medieval music. We
can get Stephen to do a medieval music course.
He's got to do it now.
Well, there's someone else in the music department.
Jesse?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So to develop these X blocks or to incorporate the materials you had to make the course within a specific amount of time, did you have to do any trade-offs? Because as you mentioned, production costs are an issue, and bringing something new, untried before, sometimes you have to, it may not go as well as you expect. Did you have any of those issues when you were developing either of the courses from an instructional design point of view?
So for Haydn, actually, his original proposal was a much larger course. And it would have required a tremendous amount of production and would have been very expensive. And so ultimately, we decided to go with a smaller version of the original proposal. But I think he was actually quite happy with how it turned out in the end. It's a nice sort of sampling of all of the original ideas that were there. In terms of the X blocks, Actually, we were very fortunate with, in terms of the piano X block, this was a fortuitous coincidence that Giulio actually had already coded the piano
That
before.
one I just built because I wanted to build it.
He just felt like
it.
it.
Hackathon because I thought it was cool, and then. Yeah.
And then, you know, when we were preparing to launch Haydn, I thought, yeah, I think I saw this piano thing.
Yeah.
That might be kind of neat. And so we tweaked it a little bit. The original version was slightly different.
Yeah, so the original version actually had, it actually was graded. So that's why I use JS input, is because I actually have it, I give you a score and you have to play the right notes. And right now I have it very draconian where a single mistake and it's wrong. But obviously that can be tweaked wherever you want. But so, so that's actually what that was. And then for the Mufi one, actually we were really fortunate that we knew way ahead of time this course was happening. And so they contacted us with wanting to do something like this probably months before the videos were shot, I think. And so we had plenty of time to think about when the development would happen for the X block. And again, it took a week or two, so it wasn't. But it got planned and got put, prioritized, and then we knew that this course was an important course because it was, Stanford and Cambridge and kind of high profile, and so we made it happen.
Yeah. And full disclosure, the instructional designer was Andy Saltarelli. I was in a different role in the English department, but working along similar lines, I think.
All the mistakes are mine.
Well, I think what gave us the benefit of longer to develop was that there were the delays were not on the development end. So.
All right. Well, I think we're out of time. We're being kicked off the stage now. So, but thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.